Hello there, everyone. Jason here. Another week, another episode of Only Murders in the Building, the second to last episode of the season. So we've got this video and next video, and that's it until season 3. It's gonna be kind of bittersweet. It'll be nice to finally see who murdered Bunny Folger, but at the same time, I've really been enjoying doing these videos, talking about my theories every week and discussing it, and it's going to leave an Arconia-shaped hole in my heart for at least a few months until the next season drops, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. Before I really get into it, a couple things. First, I bet you're wondering why I have been doing videos on Friday for a show that airs on Tuesdays. And the reason is this. I want to give myself time to process it. I usually like to watch it a couple times. First time for enjoyment, second time to really kind of see if I could pick out any clues or anything in the episode. But after this week's episode, this episode is really the reason why I like to do these videos on Fridays, because this episode was huge. And that being said, obviously I'm going to be talking spoilers about this week's episode, as well as Only Murders in the Building in general. So if you haven't watched Only Murders up to this point, what are you doing? Stop the video, go to Hulu, check out Only Murders in the Building, then come back, watch through my other Only Murders videos until you get to this one. And if you haven't watched this week's episode, go check it out and come on back and we'll discuss it. So now that I've gotten the spoiler warning out of the way, now that I've got all that business out of the way, let's dive in. So, piggybacking off of last week's revelation that Detective Krebs is Glitter Guy, thanks to a well-positioned sore arm and some glitter behind the ear, we get a POV of Detective Krebs kind of explaining himself that he doesn't make enough money being an NYPD detective, that he has to get other jobs, such as a part-time job as security in Coney Island, and freelance detectives for other states, precincts that need help on major cases. Is it to try to garner sympathy, or maybe just to explain himself? Who knows? But also, still, again, kind of piggybacking on last week's revelation, Mabel and Charles are kind of running through, Detective Krebs as a suspect, and they both really determine that he's not really smart enough to pull something like this off. So there has to be someone, to which Charles surmises the criminal mastermind. Good name for a show, by the way. And at which point, Oliver comes in looking disheveled, still in his pajamas, to tell them not only did the DNA test prove that Will is in fact his son, and that he's not as Irish as he thought he is, he's more Greekish. He also comes along to gift Charles with Mrs. Gambolini, who apparently kept him up all night, shouting profanities, as the bird does. But Charles doesn't want to have anything that goes to the bathroom out in the open. It's a rule of his. So this leads to a fight between the two of them over the cage. Something I probably should mention is the episode title is Sparring Partners, and there is a lot of sparring in this episode. It's a very on the nose title in many ways. So as Charles and Oliver are fighting over this cage, they accidentally bump it into the wall and open a secret compartment in the rolling hutch that the cage is sitting on. And inside is a canvas. That canvas is the original Rose Cooper painting that they've been looking for. So Charles decides to reach out to Leodorna Folger to let her know that he found the painting. So he contacts the nursing home that she was staying at, only to find out that she's nonverbal. But she was very verbal when she was at the memorial service a few weeks before. But she hasn't left the nursing home in how long? So after being directed by the helpful attendant over the phone, he goes through the website and finds a picture of the actual Leodorna Folger, who looks nothing like Shirley MacLaine. So as he ponders where, this mystery woman is, he kind of goes over his father's watch and finds in the back, he removes the battery in the inner workings of the watch to find an address in Lake Placid, New York, and Googles the address, calls the number associated with that address. And of course, the person on the other end of the phone is the woman who claimed to be Leodorna Folger, who he's figured out is, of course, none other than Rose Cooper herself, who is very interested in seeing the painting. So when he shows her that it is in fact the original and reveals to her that he knows she's Rose Cooper, she reveals to him that there's something she needs to show him. So she asks him to pry the nails off the boards on the canvas. Meanwhile, Mabel is zeroing in on her lead of Detective Krebs as Glitter Guy. She goes through the files that were nabbed by Theo at Coney Island and, finds his employee file, which leads her to an address. The address that he gave in his employment papers is actually the address of a boxing gym in the Bronx. So she decides to head over there to question him about the whole glitter guy situation. And after a few verbal jabs, it's obvious that he's not just going to tell her everything, spill his guts. He's more into threatening her and with feigned lunges and veiled threats of arresting her and sending her away for a crime that she didn't commit. Meanwhile, back at the Arconia, after an encounter on the elevator with Teddy Demas, Oliver reveals that Will is not in fact his son, but it is in fact Teddy Demas who is the real father. Of course, he had already told Will that he was in fact his father, but he knows the truth. In fact, he talked to his ex-wife, Roberta, who told him everything. So after a bit of a fight on the elevator that led to kind of a discussion in Oliver's apartment, they kind of come to an understanding. And the biggest thing that Oliver wants to do is keep the lie going, under the reasoning that if Roberta and Teddy could keep this a secret for all these years, maybe the three of them can keep it a secret just for the sake of Will, just so it doesn't, break his heart and, tear him to pieces, basically. But the one that this is really going to affect the most is Oliver, who knows the truth, that Will, his pride and joy, the true love of his life, his son, is not really his son, and it's heartbreaking, but that's what you do for the people that you love. Sometimes you have to take the hard truths. Back in Charles's apartment, after prying the boards from the canvas, it reveals that underneath Rose Cooper's painting of herself and her father is a painting she made of Charles's father and Charles as a child, standing looking out at the Arconia entrance. And she reveals that the painting of the two of them was for her, but the painting of Charles and his father was for him. And it's because it represents what he always wanted to be, which was a father to his son. And I'll admit, I'm going to take a sidebar to admit that moment kind of got me a little bit. It definitely got Charles. She let him have the painting. She also let Charles have the painting. She wanted him to have that painting. She also revealed that the reason she disappeared was because Charles's father loved her and wanted to protect her from an abusive and violent husband. But she realized that the only way to truly protect both of them, both herself and Charles's father, was she had to disappear. She had to go away. So she left, and it was then that Charles realized that his father died of a broken heart, which, again, that broke my heart a little bit. When she tells Charles that she wants him to have the painting, she says it's better than that lady who came to my place a few weeks ago. And he says, "What lady?" Now, back at the sparring ring, we find out that Detective Krebs becomes a little more forthcoming than he wants to be, talking about how, you don't know me, you think you're better than me, you think your generation, that's the problem, you think you know everything, that's why you make all these podcasts, because you think everybody, you're told that you're special, and you think that everybody wants to hear what you have to say. Your podcast sucks. I thought you didn't like podcasts. I do, but only the good ones. He said, I could make a better podcast than you guys could, you amateurs. And he says, if I'm so stupid, if I'm so dumb, how could I have landed the smartest woman on the planet? And he says, there's nothing better than the original. All is not okay. So that that little statement, sends Mabel back to her apartment to, listen to the All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma podcast again, and actually go through a puzzle which earlier in the episode was given to her by Alice, who made it herself. Alice tried to give it to her more so as a peace offering, and Mabel, actually does care for Alice, but Alice, can't be trusted, so she can't be with someone she can't trust. So that was sort of a bit of closure to that relationship. But going back to earlier, so she's putting together that puzzle, she's listening to the podcast, and she mentions something about, in the podcast, she mentions something about this chicken place in Oklahoma where she can talk to local law enforcement or perhaps cops from out of town. So this leads Mabel to go to Poppy to talk about, to kind of see if she can get some information from her. Now, let me wind back a little bit. For context about that chicken joint, the chicken logo on the backpack and on the towel was something that just kept popping up that looked familiar, and it was familiar because it was from Oklahoma, specifically everything All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma. And with the three of them, Charles, Oliver, and Mabel, having been like fans of this podcast, they would have looked into everything. So they probably would have seen that logo somewhere in their research on this podcast. So again, going back to what I was saying. So she approaches Poppy because in a couple episodes back, she said, anything you need, I'll be there. But she's kind of recanted that because she's scared of Cinda Canning. And she's like, what? Well, you're scared of the podcast, the Queen of Murder podcast? And she says, yes. And she says, why? Why are you so afraid? Why are you so scared? Why are you so scared of the woman who solved the murder of Becky Butler, to which Poppy reveals, that's because I am Becky Butler. At which point we realize Cinda Canning is the criminal mastermind. So she is now our primary suspect in the murder of Bunny Folger, with the assistance of Detective Krebs. That was a bombshell that honestly I did not see. I didn't see it coming as much as any others. But once you see all the bricks, once you see all the bricks have been laid and all the pieces, you kind of start to see, okay, now it starts to make sense. So what her motivations are, why she did it, how she did it, I'm sure will be revealed in next week's season finale. Kind of a side note that I really wanted to talk about. One thing I noticed particularly with Mabel is that she's been kind of a mess this season. I mean, she's been a mess throughout the entire series, but specifically this season, just because she's at the heart of, this whole thing. After her adventure with Theo at Coney Island, she kind of found herself a little more, and she's much more assertive and clear on what she needs to do and where she needs to go. And I think that was really cool what they, that they did that with her character. And I don't think I think she has quite a bit of growing still to do, but the fact that she's, moving down that path with absolute certainty, I have nothing but confidence in the direction that they're taking this character. I absolutely love this show, and I'm, it's a bittersweet moment that next week is going to be the last episode. But we'll see how this all plays out. I'm sure there'll be more twists and turns and surprises next week, and I'll be here to talk about it, and I hope you join me for what is sure to be the biggest finale yet. So let me know what you thought of this week's episode of Only Murders in the Building. Any clues I might have missed, any other theories that you might have, just I'm ready to discuss it all. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, click that notification bell to get updates on all my future videos, especially my Only Murders in the Building finale next week. Thank you, as always, for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.